Ever found yourself scratching your head, wondering why that slightly more expensive brand of coffee just feels like a better way to start your day?
Uh-huh.
Even if, the taste difference is kind of debatable.
Yeah, or maybe you've got that budget all planned out, right?
Yeah.
But then you find yourself inexplicably drawn to that shiny new gadget.
Oh, definitely. It's like there are these invisible strings pulling at our decisions,
Mhm.
often leading us down paths that aren't exactly, well, logical.
That's a spot-on way to kick things off, actually.
Yeah.
Because today, we're diving deep into those very undercurrents, the things that influence our choices.
Okay.
Think of this as like your shortcut to understanding the fascinating world of behavioral economics and our guide. It's Dan Ariely's eye-opening book, Predictably Irrational.
And this isn't just abstract theory floating around in some, academic bubble, is it?
Not at all.
This is about your life, the
Yeah.
purchases you make,
Mhm.
how you manage money.
Even those little ethical choices. Ariely touches on that with the Ten Commandments example, remember?
Yeah. So understanding these quirks, these patterns in our own minds can give you a real edge,
Hmm.
personally, professionally.
Absolutely. And what's really compelling about Ariely's work is where it comes from. His own experiences.
Right, the burn injuries.
Exactly. After suffering severe burns, he became really aware of how we perceive pain and how others manage it. He noticed, for instance, nurses might unknowingly have biases in how they gave pain relief.
Okay, so he's seeing these things firsthand, but then his perspective really shifts, doesn't it? When he connects with Professor Hannon Frank.
It does. It wasn't just about observing anymore.
It was about testing.
Precisely. Professor Frank really drove home the importance of empirical testing. Ariely tells this great story, actually,
Oh, yeah?
about developing a theory on epilepsy. He even got his vegetarian friend, Ron, to help test it on rats.
Wow. Okay.
The theory itself didn't pan out, but that early experience with, rigorous evidence-based research, that became fundamental to his whole approach.
That really brings the science down to earth. So, what kind of predictable ways do our brains lead us astray? What are we going to uncover in this deep dive for you, the listener?
Well, we'll be hitting some core themes from Ariely. Think about how we constantly compare things, relativity,
Okay.
and how that shapes what we want.
Yeah.
The surprising power of first impressions, those price anchors, the almost magnetic pull of the word free,
Oh, that's a big one.
definitely. And that sometimes awkward clash between our social side and our market-driven side.
Right. Social versus market norms.
Exactly. Get ready for some insights that, well, once you see them, you'll start spotting them everywhere in your own life.
All right, let's jump right in then. Relativity, it sounds simple, we compare stuff. That Airly shows it's like way more fundamental than just is A better than B.
He really does. And a perfect example, that famous economist subscription offer experiment.
Oh, yeah, I think I remember this one.
So they gave people three options: internet only for $59, print only for $125, and then a print and internet bundle also for $125.
Wait, so the print only and the bundle were the same price?
Exactly.
That print only option seems pointless. Why would anyone pick that?
That's the million-dollar question, and that's the key. So Ariely presented these options to students. What happened?
I bet most went for the bundle.
You got it. A few chose internet only. Basically, no one chose print only. And yeah, the vast majority grabbed the bundle.
Okay, makes sense.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting for you. What do you think happened when they took away that seemingly useless print-only option? Just offered the internet only and the bundle.
Without the comparison point,
Mm.
maybe more people chose the cheaper internet only.
Bingo. The preferences totally flipped.
Yeah.
Suddenly, way more people chose internet only and fewer went for the bundle.
Wow.
That print-only option, the one nobody wanted, it was a decoy.
A decoy.
Yeah. It wasn't there to be chosen. It was there to make the print and internet bundle look like a fantastic deal in comparison.
Even though its actual value hadn't changed at all?
Exactly. It shows we tend to make relative judgments, not absolute ones. That decoy effect is powerful. So if you see three options, maybe ask yourself, is one just there to make another look better?
That's kind of mind-blowing. So how can we use this? I mean, I can see retailers doing this all the time.
Or constantly. Think about when you're shopping for, say, a TV or a phone.
Okay.
You might see a basic model, a super high-end one, and then a third one that's maybe slightly better than basic, but priced way closer to the fancy one.
Making the middle one seem like the reasonable choice.
Right. That slightly worse, overpriced one.
Yeah.
Off to the decoy. So the actionable insight for you is step back. Think about what you actually need, your absolute needs, your budget. Ignore the artificial comparisons they set up.
Don't get suckered by the relative value trap.
Exactly.
It's like that old joke, right, about going out with friends.
Which one?
Bring along someone who looks slightly worse than you, and suddenly you look better by comparison.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it's the same principle. Ariely even jokes that if someone asks you to be their wingman or wingwoman,
Maybe question their motives.
maybe just consider their relative assessment. But yeah, this relativity thing goes way beyond looks. Think about your career.
Okay.
You might be totally happy with your salary until you hear what Dave down the hall makes for doing basically the same job.
Yeah. Suddenly your perfectly good salary feels less good.
Right. Your situation hasn't changed, but your comparison point has.
Yeah.
And it shifts everything.
And it's like the car example too, isn't it? You get a nice car, then you see a nicer one.
And suddenly yours isn't quite cutting it anymore. Desire escalates with comparison. Ariely talks about the Porsche Boxster versus the 911. Then you see a Ferrari.
It never ends.
Pretty much. He suggests the cure, if you can call it that, is trying to consciously break that cycle. Focus more genuinely satisfies you, not just keeping up with the Joneses or some escalating benchmark.
Easier said than done, maybe.
Definitely. But awareness is the first step, right?
True. Now, you mentioned we tend to compare things that are easily comparable. How does that factor in?
That adds another layer. We naturally gravitate towards comparing things with obvious similarities, like two TVs with slightly different specs.
Right.
And we tend to avoid comparing things that are harder to line up, like maybe the value of buying that TV versus going on a vacation.
Okay.
Ariely uses this funny dating profile example. Imagine you see profiles for person A and person B.
All right.
Now they add a third profile, slightly worse person A. Maybe the photo is slightly less flattering.
Okay, the decoy A.
Exactly.
Oh.
The presence of slightly worse A makes regular person A look even better by comparison. It might sway you towards person A over person B just because the A comparison is easier.
Even if person B might have been a better match overall.
Potentially. He links this to house hunting, too. Like, seeing a slightly run-down colonial house makes a good colonial look much better than, say, a contemporary house, because the colonial-to-colonial comparison is straightforward.
Fascinating. Okay, so relativity is all about how we stack things up and how that influences us. Let's move to another big one, anchoring. Sounds like first impressions really stick.
That's a great way to put it. Anchoring is the idea that the very first piece of info we get about something, especially a price, heavily influences how we value it from then on. It sets an anchor in your mind.
And you have that amazing story about black pearls, right? I always just assumed they were naturally valuable.
Ah, yes. It's a perfect example of how value can be, well, created through anchoring. Black pearls, historically, they weren't desirable at all.
Really?
Yeah. But this entrepreneur, a sale, decided to change that. He struggled at first, but instead of lowering the price, he did something clever. He got some higher quality ones, partnered with the famous jeweler, Harry Winston.
The Harry Winston?
The very same. Winston displayed them in his fancy Fifth Avenue store with super high price tags. At the same time, a sale ran these slick ads in magazines, showing the black pearls next to diamonds, rubies, emeralds.
Wow. So by putting them next to luxury gems and giving them that high price.
They anchored them. They created the perception that black pearls were luxury high-value items. From then on, they were.
That's incredible marketing.
It is. And this isn't just about pearls. It affects you all the time. Ariely points out, once you buy something at a certain price, you're anchored to it.
So if I buy my first smartphone for, say, $800, every future phone is going to be judged against that $800 anchor in my head.
Pretty much, yeah. And to show this arbitrary coherence, how random anchors stick, Ariely did this experiment.
Okay.
Had students write down the last 2 digits of their social security number. Totally random, right?
Yeah.
Then asked if they'd pay that amount in dollars for various items, wine, chocolate, etc. Then they held a real auction for those items.
No way those random numbers actually affected what they bid. That seems crazy.
It was completely arbitrary.
Yeah.
And that's the point. They found a clear correlation. Students with higher SSN digits were willing to bid significantly more than those with lower digits.
Just based on those random numbers they wrote down first.
Yep. The initial anchor, even a meaningless one, set the stage for their perception of value later on. It created a coherent pattern, even from an arbitrary start.
Wow. So, okay, what's the actionable takeaway for us? How do we avoid getting caught by these anchors?
Well, awareness is huge, obviously. When you're negotiating house, car, salary, remember that first number you hear. It's powerful.
So do your homework first.
Exactly. Research the fair market value before you start talking numbers. Give yourself an internal, informed anchor. And be really careful with introductory offers or big sale prices,
What's that?
because sometimes they're used deliberately to set a low anchor, making the regular price later seem more reasonable than it might otherwise. Know the real value before you see their price tag.
That's really practical. Okay, anchoring. Got it. Now let's talk about something that always gets my attention. Free. The word itself just seems to bypass logic.
You've hit on something fundamental there. Free isn't just another price. It triggers a totally different psychological reaction in us.
How so?
We tend to massively overvalue free things. It often leads us to make choices we wouldn't otherwise make.
Like those buy one, get one free deals. I fall for those sometimes, even if I didn't really need to.
That's a classic example you probably recognize.
Yeah.
Ariely has this great chocolate experiment.
Chocolate. Okay, I'm listening.
He offered students a choice: a fancy Lindt truffle for 15 cents or a basic Hershey's Kiss for 1 cent.
Okay, Lindt is way better. I'd probably pay the 15 cents.
And many students did. They
Yeah.
saw the better quality worth the extra 14 cents. Seems rational, right?
Yeah.
Then he changed it slightly, lowered both prices by just 1 cent. So
Yeah.
the truffle was 14 cents and the kiss was free.
Ah, now the kiss is free.
Right. The price difference is still 14 cents. But what happened?
I bet way more people took the free kiss.
Dramatically more. The preference completely flipped. The allure of free overwhelmed the rational calculation of quality versus price.
That's amazing. Why does free have such a grip on us?
Ariely thinks it's because free feels like there's zero downside, no potential for loss. With any price, even 1 cent, there's a tiny mental calculation of cost versus benefit, a slight risk. But with free, that disappears. It feels inherently safe and overwhelmingly attractive.
Even if the free thing isn't actually what's best for you.
Exactly, like getting 2 BOGO items you only vaguely wanted just because one was free.
Guilty as charged.
So the actionable insight for you: be really wary of free. Ask yourself, would I want this if it wasn't free? Focus on the actual value and your real need, not just the magic word. Free often makes us choose poorly.
Good advice.
Yeah.
Okay, relativity, anchoring, free. These are powerful forces. Let's shift now to how we interact with each other. Social norms versus market norms. Sounds like how we treat friends versus, say, businesses.
Precisely. Ariely draws this crucial line between social norms, friendship, favors, community, doing things out of goodwill.
Like helping a friend move.
Right. And market norms, transactions, payments, contracts, clear exchanges of value.
Hiring movers.
Perfect examples for you. And here's the kicker. These two sets of norms, they don't always mix well.
Oh.
Ariely describes this experiment asking students to help move furniture. Some were offered nothing. Some were offered a decent amount of money. And some were offered just a tiny payment, like a few bucks.
Okay, what happened? I bet the tiny payment felt weird.
It totally backfired. The students offered nothing. Happy to help social norms, helping out. Those offered good money. Also happy market norms, fair pay. But the group offered the small payment.
Least willing.
By far. Introducing that little bit of money shifted it from the social world, helping, to the market world, getting paid.
Oh.
And in the market world, a few bucks felt insulting.
Wow. Some money actually killed the goodwill.
It did. And once you introduce market norms into a social situation, it's really hard to go back.
That seems like a big deal. You also mentioned that daycare study with late fees.
Yes, the Israeli Daycare Center. They brought in a fine for parents who were late picking up their kids. Before the fine, lateness was mostly about social norms. Parents felt guilty making staff wait.
Which probably discouraged lateness a bit.
Exactly. The fine was meant as a market-based deterrent. Make them pay, they'll be on time.
But
It did the opposite. Parents started seeing the fine not as a penalty, but as a price they could pay for the convenience of being late. Lateness actually increased.
oh, wow. They just bought themselves extra time.
Pretty much. And again, once those market norms took over, the social guilt disappeared, and it was hard to undo. It shows you how social norms can often be more effective and cheaper than trying to apply market rules everywhere.
That has huge implications for relationships, right? You can't put a price on everything.
Absolutely.
Right.
Think about gift giving in your life. Bringing a nice bottle of wine to a dinner party, that's social. It strengthens the bond.
Right.
Handing the host $50 cash, even if it's the same value, that feels transactional, awkward.
Yeah, definitely different.
Ariely uses that exact example. The wine bringer is way more likely to get help moving a sofa later than the cash giver. So the takeaway for you, value and nurture those social norms. Be careful about injecting market thinking where it doesn't belong.
And that Craigslist ad you mentioned, someone looking for a rich spouse.
Oh yeah, that perfectly illustrates the cringe factor when you try to apply purely market logic, I offer this, you offer that, to something deeply social like romance. It just doesn't fit.
So when the price is zero, like with free, social norms get stronger.
It seems so. When money is off the table, we tend to think more about community, sharing, fairness. Social considerations come to the front. Ariely even notes that simply not mentioning prices can sometimes help foster social norms.
And hiding the money helps too, like bringing a gift instead of cash for Thanksgiving dinner at your mother-in-law's.
Exactly. It preserves the spirit of the social exchange for you, rather than making it feel like a payment for services rendered.
Really valuable stuff for navigating relationships. Okay, let's pivot. Emotions. How they mess with our rational selves. You call this the hot state? What's that about?
Yes, the hot state. It's when intense emotions like anger, excitement, hunger, sexual arousal take over. Our preferences and behaviors can change dramatically compared to when we're in a cool, calm, rational state. This is super important for you to understand about yourself.
And the classic, maybe slightly awkward example is that sexual arousal study you did.
Huh? Yes. A bit awkward, but very revealing. We asked male students questions about sexual preferences, likelihood of engaging in morally dicey acts. First, when they were calm or cool.
Okay.
Then we asked them the same questions while they were, well, sexually aroused in the hot state.
I made a difference.
Huge difference. They consistently underestimated how much their aroused state would influence their answers and predicted behaviors. What they thought they'd do when calm was often way off from what they said they'd do when aroused.
So the calm me doesn't really know the aroused me very well.
That's the core finding, yeah. And it's a critical insight for you. We often fail to predict the power of our own emotions. And it's not just sex. Think about anger, fear, intense hunger.
Okay, so what can we do about it, knowing we're different people in hot states?
The key insight for you is to recognize this gap, and then try to build in circuit breakers or strategies when you're in a cool state to manage your future hot self.
Like what?
Like maybe deciding not to make major financial decisions when you're feeling super stressed or excited. Or having a pre-agreed plan for handling arguments before things get heated. Acknowledge your vulnerability in hot moments and put safeguards in place when you're calm.
That makes sense. Plan ahead for your emotional self.
Ah.
Okay, another common struggle, procrastination. I think we can all relate to putting things off.
Oh, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Ariely frames procrastination as basically choosing immediate gratification over our long-term goals.
Like choosing Netflix over finishing that report.
Exactly. When we're cool, we make plans, save money, exercise, eat well, meet deadlines. But then the hot state kicks in the urge for that immediate reward, the comfort of avoiding the difficult tasks. That sound familiar to you?
Painfully familiar. It's that battle between present me and future me.
Right. And Ariely, being an academic, knows procrastination well. He did this great experiment with student deadlines. 3 groups. One group, students set their own deadlines for papers throughout the semester. Second group, no deadlines, just submit everything by the end. Third group, he set firm, evenly spaced deadlines.
I have a bad feeling about the no deadlines group.
You'd be right. They performed the worst. The students with the instructor-set deadlines, they did the best. And the self-set deadline group, somewhere in the middle.
So even setting your own deadlines isn't as good as having external ones.
The results suggest not. It shows the power of external structure to help us fight our own tendency to put things off. The insight for you, we often need help committing.
Which leads to the idea of pre-commitment, right?
Exactly. Using your cool, rational state to set up constraints or incentives that force your future, potentially procrastinating self, to follow through.
Like setting automatic savings transfers or scheduling workouts with a friend so you can't easily back out.
Perfect examples for you. Or setting non-refundable deadlines for yourself. Ariely mentions forward bundling car maintenance. That's a pre-commitment strategy too. The actionable advice for you: identify where you procrastinate and actively set up these pre-commitments. Find ways to lock your future self into the choices your present self wants to make. Maybe even an accountability partner.
Pre-commitment. Got it. Another tool for the toolbox. Now let's talk ownership. The endowment effect. What's that about?
The endowment effect is this funny quirk where we tend to value things much more after we own them compared to what we'd pay to get them if we didn't own them.
So that old mug I love, I wouldn't sell it for $5, but I probably wouldn't pay $5 for it if I saw it in a shop.
That's the basic ideal. Ownership itself seems to add value in our minds. Ariely talks about a study with highly sought-after basketball tickets.
Okay.
Students who won the tickets in a lottery consistently demanded a much, much higher price to sell them than students who didn't win were willing to pay to buy them.
Even though both groups presumably wanted the tickets equally badly beforehand?
Exactly. What does that tell you about owning something?
It makes you attached. It feels like yours, and losing it feels worse.
Precisely. Ariely gives three main reasons. One, yeah, we fall in love with what we have, get attached. Two, we focus more on the loss of giving it up than the gain of selling it. Loss aversion is powerful.
Right.
And three, we mistakenly assume buyers see the item the same way we do, with all our history and attachment baked in. They don't. The insight for you. Ownership clouds judgment on value.
That makes sense. Like selling a beloved old car, you remember the road trips, they just see the mileage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You also mentioned virtual ownership in auctions.
Yeah, how does that work?
Well, the longer you are the high bidder in an online auction, the more you start to feel like you already own the item, even though you don't.
Ah, so it feels like losing something if you get outbid.
Right. That sense of virtual ownership kicks in, fueled by the time and effort you've invested. It makes you want to bid higher to avoid the loss. So the takeaway for you in auctions, set your limit before you start bidding and stick to it. Don't let virtual ownership trick you into overpaying.
Good tip. Okay, related to ownership maybe, keeping options open. Why do we hate closing doors even when it's inefficient?
We seem to have this strong aversion to commitment, this desire to keep all possibilities alive, even if it costs us time, energy, or even money. It's that fear of missing out, isn't it?
FOMO. Yeah, I know that feeling. Spreading yourself too thin, trying to do everything.
Ariely has this brilliant door game experiment. People played a computer game, earning points by clicking inside different virtual rooms, shown as doors.
Okay.
But here's the catch. Doors to rooms you didn't visit would slowly shrink and eventually disappear forever.
Oh, pressure. So people probably frantically clicked on all the doors to keep them open.
That's exactly what they did. They ran around inefficiently trying to keep every single door open, even though they would have earned way more points by just focusing on one or two rooms.
Wow.
And get this, they even added a version where it cost points just to open a new door. People still did it. They still paid a price just to keep those less valuable options alive.
That's crazy. So what's the lesson for us?
The actionable insight for you is to look at your life. Where are you keeping too many doors open? Career paths, hobbies, projects, even relationships. Sometimes, decisively closing a few doors frees up the energy and focus you need to really succeed in the ones that matter most. Commitment can be more rewarding than constant possibility.
That requires some courage, though, letting go of possibilities. You also mentioned the problem when choices are too similar.
Yeah, that's a paradox. When faced with two options that are almost identical and equally good, we can get totally paralyzed.
Like choosing between two identical job offers.
Exactly. Ariely uses the old story of the donkey starving to death between two equally tempting bales of hay because it couldn't decide which one to eat first.
Analysis paralysis.
Right. He even talks about his own struggle choosing between MIT and Stanford, both amazing options, which made the choice agonizing. The insight for you, don't get bogged down comparing tiny differences between very similar good options.
So what should we do then? Just flip a coin?
Honestly, sometimes that's not the worst idea, even figuratively. The actionable advice for you, recognize when you're stuck between two great, similar choices. Set a time limit, or just pick one and move on. The cost of endless deliberation often outweighs any tiny benefit of finding the marginally perfect choice. Good enough is often, well, good enough. Make a choice and commit.
Liberating advice. Okay, let's talk expectations. What we think will happen actually changes what we experience.
Absolutely. Our expectations are incredibly powerful. They can literally change our perception of reality, even our physical sensations.
Like the beer experiment.
Ah, yes. The beer with balsamic vinegar at the Muddy Charles pub. Some people were told beforehand that the beer had vinegar in it. Others were told after they tasted it.
I bet the ones who knew beforehand hated it or liked it less.
Spot on. Their expectation of an unpleasant ingredient colored their actual taste experience.
Yeah.
Even if they might have liked it otherwise. He also did one with coffee condiments.
Oh, yeah.
Same weird condiments, cardamom, anise, whatever, but presented either in fancy, elegant containers or just plain styrofoam cups.
And the presentation changed how the coffee tasted.
Well, it changed how much people said they liked the coffee, same weird stuff in it. But the fancy presentation set up a higher expectation, which led to a better reported experience.
We really do eat or drink with our eyes first. And that story about the violinist Joshua Bell in the subway, that was powerful.
Just incredible, wasn't it? A world-class musician playing priceless music on a Stradivarius.
And people just walked by because he was in a subway station, not a concert hall.
Exactly. The context, the lack of expected cues, the tuxedo, the stage, the ticket price meant people couldn't perceive the incredible value right in front of them. The actionable insight for you. Be aware of how your expectations are filtering reality. Are you missing out on something great just because it doesn't come in the expected package? Try to be open.
That's a profound challenge. We might overlook brilliance if it's not presented how we expect. Okay, next. Context itself. How our surroundings shape us.
Yeah, even subtle, seemingly irrelevant things in our environment can nudge our behavior. Ariely talks about that elderly word priming study.
Right, where people saw words like Florida, wrinkle.
Exactly, either consciously or subliminally. And then researchers timed how fast they walked down the hall afterward.
And they walked slower, without even realizing why.
Precisely. The words activated the concept of old age in their minds, which then influenced their physical behavior. It shows how your environment is constantly sending subtle signals that affect you, the actionable takeaway for you. Pay attention to your surroundings. Can you shape your context to support your goals?
Like keeping a tidy desk for better focus.
Or keeping healthy snacks visible and junk food hidden. Exactly. Be mindful of the subtle cues around you and try to design an environment that nudges you in the right direction.
Consciously designing our context. I like that. Now, the placebo effect, the power of belief.
Right.
This one's fascinating.
It truly is. The placebo effect is proof that our minds can have a direct, measurable impact on our bodies. Believing a treatment will work, even if it's a sugar pill, can actually lead to real physiological improvement.
Like that knee surgery study, that was mind-blowing.
Absolutely groundbreaking.
Yep.
Patients with osteoarthritis got either real arthroscopic knee surgery or a sham surgery. They made the incisions, mimicked the procedure, but didn't actually do anything inside the knee.
And the results?
The placebo group reported just as much pain relief and improved mobility as the group who got the real surgery.
Incredible. Just the belief they'd had surgery was enough.
It shows the power, doesn't it? And this isn't just surgery. Placebos work to some degree with pain, depression, Parkinson's, and price plays a role too.
Oh,
Ariely did studies showing people got more pain relief from a fake painkiller when they were told it was expensive versus cheap.
so we believe expensive things work better, and that belief makes them work better.
It seems that way. Same thing with discounted energy drinks. People performed worse on puzzles after drinking one they thought was cheap versus full price, even though the drink was identical. Price anchors our expectation of quality, which then influences the placebo effect.
Wow.
The actionable insight for you. Belief and positive expectations matter. They can genuinely help. But, and this is crucial, placebo shouldn't replace effective medical treatments when they exist. Use the power of belief to complement good medicine, not substitute for it.
A very important balance. Okay, let's tackle a tricky one, dishonesty. Why do we cheat sometimes? And how can we be more honest?
Ariely argues it's not always a simple cost-benefit calculation, can I get away with it? He talks about the fudge factor.
The fudge factor.
You're like this little zone of acceptable dishonesty. We can cheat a bit, bend the rules slightly, without damaging our self-image as basically good, honest people. Does that ring a bell for you?
Maybe a little. Taking extra napkins, perhaps?
Exactly, small things. And his experiments show how this works, like the MIT Coke versus cash study.
What happened there?
They put cans of Coke and plates of dollar bills in dorm refrigerators using an honor system. The Cokes disappeared constantly. The money barely touched.
So stealing a Coke feels less like stealing than taking cash.
It seems so, even though the Coke has a clear cash value. Same with taking a cheap pencil versus the equivalent coins. Being one step removed from actual money makes cheating easier for us to rationalize.
That's psychological distance. Interesting. What about the Ten Commandments experiment? How does that help?
That was really insightful. They had students try to recall the 10 Commandments or just think about them right before a task where they had an opportunity to cheat for money.
Yeah.
Those who were reminded of a moral code, even briefly, cheated significantly less than the control group. Even people who couldn't remember many commandments cheated less.
So just activating that moral benchmark was enough.
It appears so. It wasn't necessarily about deep religious belief, but about bringing morality to the front of the mind right before the temptation. The actionable insight for you. Simple moral reminders, honor codes, ethical guidelines, even just reflecting on values can be surprisingly effective in curbing dishonesty for yourself and in groups.
A little nudge towards honesty. Okay, final topic. Social influence. Following the crowd.
Yep, how the choices of others sway our own, sometimes against our actual preferences. Ariely's beer ordering study at the Carolina Brewery is a great example.
How did that work?
People ordered beer. Sometimes they ordered out loud, one after the other. Other times they wrote their order down privately.
I bet the public ordering changed things. People wanted to seem unique.
You got it. When ordering out loud, especially after hearing others, people were more likely to choose a different beer than they might have otherwise, perhaps to signal individuality. But here's the twist. They often ended up being less satisfied with their choice compared to those who ordered privately based on their own preference.
So trying to be different made them less happy.
In that case, yes. The actionable insight for you: be aware of social pressure, whether it's pressure to conform or pressure to stand out. Try to tune into your genuine preference before letting the group sway you. Maybe decide what you want at the restaurant before the waiter comes, or just be the first to order.
Stick to your guns or your beer choice. Well, this has been incredibly illuminating. We've covered so much ground on predictable irrationality.
It really shows how many hidden forces are shaping our decisions every day, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And the key thing, as you said, isn't to feel bad about being irrational.
No. It's about understanding these systematic patterns, because once you understand them, you can start to counteract them. Behavioral economics offers these free lunches, insights, and strategies to help us make better choices.
So as we wrap up, what are the big takeaways you want listeners to remember? The actionable stuff.
Okay, let's boil it down for you.
Timmy.
1. Beware relativity. Compare less. Know your own needs. 2. Anchors are real. Do your homework before seeing a price. 3. Free is tricky. Focus on value, not just zero cost.
Got it.
4. Respect social norms. Don't let market thinking ruin relationships. 5. Understand your hot state. Plan ahead when you're cool. 6. Fight procrastination with pre-commitment. Lock yourself in.
Keep going.
7. Endowment effect. You overvalue your stuff. Try to be objective. 8. Don't keep too many doors open. Commit to what matters. 9. Expectations shape reality. Be aware of your biases.
Nearly there.
10. Context matters. Design your environment for success. 11. Placebos are powerful, but use them wisely alongside real medicine. 12. We all fudge. Use moral reminders to stay honest. And 13. Watch out for social influence. Know your own mind.
That's a fantastic summary. So much practical wisdom there for us all. Thank you for breaking it all down.
My pleasure. It's fascinating stuff.
And thank you, listener, for joining us on this deep dive. Hopefully, understanding these predictable irrationalities gives you a bit more control over your choices. If you're intrigued, definitely check out Dan Ariely's book, Predictably Irrational. Until next time, keep questioning those decisions.